Hello Internet, I'm Elliot the Purple Hair Doofus and welcome to Buddy Reads, where I read a small selection of a book and review it for you. Today we are covering chapters 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18 of The Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss. Do not worry, these chapters are short. Today's section starts off with my absolute favorite character, Ari. Kvothe is going to meet with her. They are having a nice evening, exchanging gifts for each other, when all of a sudden, Eliodin walks up. And Kvothe kind of stands between the two of them and tries to guard Ari from him. And he's like, "Hi, sir. How are you doing?" And he notices that Ari's just like frozen stiff. The way that Patrick describes Ari, I finally realized why I like her so much, and it's because she's got a childlike innocence to her. And I find that awesome and intriguing. Kvothe's standing between the two of them. Eliodin is actually very nice to Ari. Ari kind of says, "What, did you bring me something?" And Eliodin says, "I brought you this." And Eliodin says, "Did Kvothe bring me anything?" And Ari says, "Kvothe's gonna sing." He does that for everyone. He brings music for everyone. He's always got something for someone. And it's just kind of like amazing how Ari kind of stands up for him that way. But then the interaction ends and it's just Kvothe and Eliodin and they're talking about Ari, and Kvothe says, "You had better keep Ari's secret because if you don't, I don't know what I'll do with myself. I might do something stupid." And Eliodin's like, "That's very smart of you. So have you done any of the reading that you need to do for the course that's coming up?" And Kvothe's like, "No, I can't. I'm not allowed in the archives." And Eliodin's like, "Still? What the hell is up with that?" So he like jumps on the roof with Kvothe and they run to the archives. Professor Lamar. Eliodin says, "Hey, why don't you let my boy Kvothe into your library?" And Lamar says, "Well, I was planning to do it in about 4 months." And Eliodin's like, "You're gonna do it now." And he's like, "Okay, but only the tomes." And he's like, "The tomes are for like first year students. Kvothe's like a third-year student. He's learned his lesson. Come on, let him in." Lamar's like, "I don't know if I want to." And Eliodin says, "You know, how about this? If Kvothe breaks any of your rules, you can take his thumbs." And Kvothe's like, "Whoa, wait a minute. I like my thumbs. Come on." Lamar's like, "Deal." Kvothe's like, "Well, I'm happy to be in, but my thumbs." The next day, classes start. Kvothe is on his way to class when he is approached by another teacher who says, "Hey, a young woman was looking for you. She didn't know you by name, but she said that you've been selling charms to people. And you know that selling charms is illegal, right?" And Kvothe's like, "I'm not. What are you talking about? I've never sold charms. I don't even know how to make charms. What? Look at the way that I'm dressed. Do you think I would be dressed like this if I were selling charms?" The teacher's like, "Well, you kind of got a point there, but how would she know to come here to look for you?" Kvothe says, "She didn't even know my name. You really want to know what I think?" And the teacher's like, "Yeah, I do." Kvothe says, "I think Ambrose is trying to sabotage me again. I think he's putting my name out there to women and luring them in to sully my name." And the teacher's like, "Oh, that's probably a good point. You two are in kind of dire straits." And Kvothe's like, "Yeah, that's probably what happened." And he goes along his way. He gets to the first class with Master Eliodin. I know I'm totally screwing up that name, but I don't know how to say it. Gets to the first class. The teacher shows up like 3 hours late. They only have an hour. And the teacher is like, "Okay, name this rock." And everyone's like, "I don't know." "What?" "Bob." And the teacher's like, "Well, look at this rock. Look at the shape of it. Look at the way that the wind passes around it. Look at the way that it, look at the heft that it has in my hand. Look at everything about this rock. And tell me everything that you can about this rock." And the students are like, "It's dull. It's heavy." Oh, it's like, "Yeah, but more. And he's like, wait a minute. How about this? I'm going to toss this rock. I want you to tell me precisely where it lands." And so the students confer for like 15 minutes and they calculate their way that the rock would travel through the air, and they get a precise location of the rock. And then he's like, "Okay, that's great. Hold on for 1 second. And he goes over to the door and he calls a little boy over. He's like, "Little boy, here, catch." And he tosses the rock to the little boy, and the boy catches it easily. Master Eliodin's like, "Oh, thank you so much." And he takes the rock back and he's like, "You've been good. Goodbye." And the boy walks away and he's like, "How did that boy know exactly where that rock was going to be if he didn't do the 15 minutes of calculations that you guys just did?" And he describes the difference between the waking mind and the sleeping mind, and how the sleeping mind is sometimes much more intelligent than the waking mind. At the end of the class, he writes down 20 different books that all of the students are supposed to pick one and read one, and at least look through the others. And in order to do this, you have to go through the archives. And so Kvothe goes to his friends, and they are taking him to the archives for the very first time since he's been banned. And the whole time, Kvothe's like, I'm nervous. I'm gonna get there. My name's not gonna be on there. Nothing's gonna work. Something's gonna go wrong. He gets to the line, and they're like, oh yeah, your name's right here. It's like, oh, thank God. And he's like, right next to it, it has a description of him, and it's like, red-haired, pretty, fit. And it's like, utter bastard. And he's like, yeah, that fits. And his friends go in. And the thing is Kvothe's been slipping into the archives the entire time. So he knows his way around already, but he has to feign the fact that he doesn't know. And it's just a way for the author to reestablish how the library works, because the last time that he did that was in book 1, and if you're only reading this book, which why the hell are you, then you don't know how the library works. It repeats a whole bunch of stuff, and I'm not going to do that for you because, ugh. And Kvothe goes and he starts finding the books, and he wants to read them so badly that he starts off reading every single word of the first few books, and then he's like, okay, these are kind of nonsense, and then he goes on to another book, and it's like, okay, this is kind of nonsense, and then he gets down to like the 10th book, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna start skimming. And he starts skimming the books, and they turn out to be like tax returns for a wizard. And he's like, what? No. By the time he's done with all 20 books, or 19, because he can't find one, he is so done with reading. And I kind of totally get that. Kvothe shows up for class the next day. All the students are locked out of the classroom, and they're waiting there for hours for Master Elodin to show up, and he never does. Kvothe eventually tries the knob, and he notices that it's locked, and then he jiggles the knob some more, and then it opens, because when he jiggled it, it loosened it, I guess. All the students barrel into the classroom, and Master Elodin is not there. But there is just one word written on the chalkboard, and it just says discuss. Like they're supposed to discuss all of the books that they read. And the thing was like, even though Kvothe could not find one of the books, he was the only one that found 19 of them. Everyone else was just way too burnt out by like book 15. Continue going on. And so they discuss that a bit until the class period is over, and they're all a little mad that Master Elodin never showed up. Then Kvothe goes to dinner. I'm just like, oh, dinner. How boring and dull dinner. Every time her name comes up, I'm just like, oh, why? He goes to look for dinner at the apartment that he met her at last time, and the doorman is like, no, she's not here. I don't know where she is. I cannot pass your card on to her. I cannot pass her number on to you. I cannot pass anything on to her because I have no idea where she went. She is no longer here, sir. You need to leave. And I totally get that guy's frustration, because Kvothe, you need to concentrate on the magic. You need to concentrate on the fun bits. This whole pining after dinner thing needs to end. Kvothe goes to another class with Elodin. Basically, the students are all standing around and they're all giving interesting facts. And the more interesting the facts, the more Elodin is like, okay, you pass. And if it's one that he's heard before, if he's bored with it, he's just like, no. Try again. He gets to Fella right before he gets to Kvothe, and Fella gives him this amazing fact about curing people who could not see, how they did not know what a round object was until they felt it. And Master Elodin's like, wow, that's amazing. Here, you get the prize of the day for the most interesting fact. And Fella's like, what about Kvothe? Master Elodin's like, Kvothe's crap with facts. And I'm like, at least he is crap at something. Thank God. And Kvothe's a little mad at this. He's a little like, wait a minute, I'm not crap with facts. And Master Elodin says, okay, what's your fact? And he gives him a lame fact, and he's like, that's lame. And Kvothe's like, I have to be perfect at everything. I'm not the biggest fan of Kvothe right now. Master Elodin gives her a reread, and she opens it up, and all these cotton things start flying around, and Master Elodin's like, oh, fudge! And he's like running around trying to grab them all, and he doesn't catch any of them, and he accidentally swallows one, and he's like, I'm done for the day! And he runs out of the room, and that's the end of their class. for that day. Kvothe pines after Denna, but he would rather go to the library now that he knows that she's no longer there. And as he's at the library, he's studying the Chandrian. And I'm like, yes, this is what I want. I want him hunting down the creatures that killed his family. We read a little bit more about the Chandrian, and you find out that they're kind of like Candlejack from Freakazoid. The only reason that he shows up is you say his name. The Chandrian, the only reason that they go after you is because you're talking about them. The only reason that they went after his family was because his father was writing a song about them. He can't find very much because whenever you write about them, they go after you. He leaves the library. He sees Denna far away, and he's like starting to approach her, figuring that she's with a suitor. And she is getting into a carriage with Ambrose. And I realize that this is supposed to be some point where I'm like, oh dear God, oh sad Kvothe, oh your one and only love is with the man that you hate. But I don't care. Really don't care. If Denna dies by the end of this book, I will be so happy. Because I do not care about that storyline at all. And then I'm thinking, you know what we could really use is some time back at the end where Kvothe is talking with Bast and the Chronicler about all of this. And that's exactly what I got. I was like, thank God. We have this little interlude where Kvothe says, I see people coming. We should disperse. They don't need to know that we're doing this. He gives the Chronicler a joke to tell. He tells Bast to be drinking but be bored. The people come in and they appear to be the army that served with the man that was killed the night previous, or the book previous, by the shadow thing. And they have their own version of a funeral with whiskey. And they toast the man. Kvothe kind of walks up and he's like, I know this is kind of a private event, but I kind of like that guy too. Can I toast him? I go, sure, come on. You know, more the merrier. And so Kvothe toasts him, and it's like, it's very fitting for Kvothe to do that. And it's a very, I want to say sweet, but it's not really sweet. It's kind of humbling to see him mourn after someone like that, I guess. And then he sits back down with the Chronicler and Bast to continue the story after those warriors had left. And he sits down and he starts talking about Denna again. I'm like, oh dear God, why? Because he's hanging out at the bar with his friends when Denna walks in with another suitor who is not Ambrose. And the other suitor sits at the bar, and Denna comes up to them and says, hey, is that guy left yet? And they're like, no. And she's like, I need, I was late. Be mad at me. And so Sim is like, you were late, and no apology will do. Not even a drink that you bought me right now. And Denna's like, okay, fair point. Denna gets him a drink. They start playing corners. And Denna's like, I don't know how to play corners. I'm like, come on. Just have Denna do one thing well. Just one thing. And so they have to teach her corners. And they're playing corners, and I don't know how to play corners. They're playing corners, and the guys are kind of wiping the floor with Kvothe and Denna. And then all of a sudden, things change. And it turns out that Denna was totally playing them. She knew how to play corners all along. And now she's wiping the floor with them and taking all their money. It's just like, thank God she's good for something. And then they have this whole discussion about magic. This is all stuff that we learned in book 1 again. You know, the way that things can be linked if you believe in them hard enough and that sort of stuff. And it's just like, this section was a lot of review about the libraries and magic. And I apologize for that. But the last part of the magic instruction, Dennis says, you guys ever heard of this magic where you can write stuff down and it becomes true? And if someone looks at it, even if it's not a language that they understand, it becomes true for them. Have you ever heard anything like that? And the guys are like, oh, you're crazy, lady. Come on. Stop talking girly fairy tale stuff and start talking real magic. So that might be interesting and come back and bite us in the end. But that's pretty much where this section ends. I'll be honest, I'm struggling a bit with this book. It's not an easy read. I thought it would be because the first one kind of was. This one is... it's kind of difficult to get through, and I think it's because in the first book, Kvothe was just finding out about his powers. This book, well, in the first book, Kvothe was just finding out about his powers. He was still struggling with his powers. He was still struggling to do amazing things. In this book, so far at least, he's already kind of amazing, and whenever a character becomes too perfect, they kind of become boring in my head. So I'm not really digging him. So far, the most interesting character is still Ari, and I hope that since he has access to the archives now, that doesn't mean that he's going to stop visiting Ari, because I mean, I thought that was the only reason that he was talking to her. So I hope that he still talks to her. I don't know. He probably will. I'm probably worrying about nothing, but it's kind of leaning in a direction where it's like he has everything that he needs. I want more stuff for Chandran, and I want less stuff with Denna. Way less stuff with Denna. If you like what I'm doing, go ahead and click the subscribe button. If you like this video specifically, go ahead and click the like button, and go ahead and leave a comment letting me know, when's the last time you read a sequel that didn't handhold you and repeat the same things over to you? So I might be interested in that sequel. I've been out the Purple Air Doofus. This has been Buddy Reads reminding you to watch up the Game Radius, and I will see you all in the next section of Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss. Toodles!